everybody, and welcome to your Wednesday dose of wealth wisdom with me, Daniel Kennedy. Sorry for the delay. As always, customer service is always the most important thing, and making sure your end user is happy. So I've just been round to do a repair, so that's why we're slightly behind. But no bother, the information is still coming, and the information is still going to be valuable. Same detail. I am now going to share this to various groups, especially the Wealth Dragons, as they were the ones who voted for this topic. And like the good guy I am obliging. There we go. All right, that's that done. Oh yeah, one thing you may notice, the tash is gone. I look less glorious now. The running season is upon us, and I want to be more aerodynamic. All right, that's shared everywhere, as it needs to be. So hello, everybody, and welcome to your Wednesday dose of wealth wisdom with me, Daniel Kennedy, the Wealth Dragon Coach. Thank you for joining me. Today's topic is, as voted for by the Wealth Dragon Inner Circle, is how to keep the cost of refurbs down. And I'm going to specifically aim at refurbs, not HMOs, not big developments, but your standard buy-to-let flip. So you get a house, maybe it needs a bit of work, a fallback to brick job, and you want to save costs because in the beginning it's really difficult to raise finance because you don't have credibility. You're unable to pull funds together because when you start out, you generally tend to be in a poor financial situation. So you want to save on every penny that you possibly can on your refurb. So I'm going to take an example of the first deal that I did and how bad it went for me in terms of refurb. And then we're going to analyze what we could have done better. And if I did it second time round, what would I do different from the first time? So this is me 4 years ago in Hartlepool. The property is number 2 Striker Street. So you can have a ganders at how much I paid for it and how much it sold for. And I'll show you how much I should have made if I'd have done it properly and how much I lost because I didn't. So I was looking for a builder and I put a few messages on Facebook and had the builders contact me directly. And that's one thing that you need to be wary of. Only go with recommendations of people who have used them in the past, because the builder's going to say what you want to hear for them to get a job. And especially if you're not experienced when you're doing refurbs, they can very easily overcomplicate the process when in reality, like plastering a wall, doing some electric, it's all very simple stuff really. So get recommendations. The builder came to the job, quoted. I didn't get multiple quotes. He was the first person that turned up. He took the job and I did it remotely. I wasn't local. So that's one thing that I wouldn't recommend either. Don't remotely control your projects. So build stalls, as of course it was bound to do because I wasn't holding the person accountable, because everyone needs to be held accountable. Never take somebody for their word, because very few people do what they say they're going to do, myself included. Sometimes, like there's a few goals that I said I was going to do this week that I haven't stuck to. So make sure accountability is there. The deal stall had to get a new builder in, and then I turned up there. I used a whole 4, 5, 6 weeks of my post-tour leave, which means I was away. I had lots of leave from the job, and I used it all to get the job back on hand. And only because I was there, the job sort of took off, and I lost loads of money initially from the first builder. So lesson 1, don't remotely control your builder if you never worked with them. So if I did that deal again, this is the ideal situation I'd want to be in. Before the works begin, I would find out what needs to be done. if you're not aware of what needs to be done, you need to go and get educated. That's not an excuse to say, I don't know. Because if the builder's going to tell you that this needs to be done, like this wall needs to be replastered, when in essence, you might be able to fill it, sand it and paint it, saves you a couple of £100. Or essentially rip out all the skirting when really you might be able to sand it, caulk it, paint it, save yourself a bit of money, save yourself a bit of labor of it being disposed of, etc. So get educated on what needs to be done. First fix, second fix, when works need to be done, because you can have trades stepping on each other's toes. And what happens on every job is the plumber will blame the electrician will blame the plumber, the builder will blame whoever's not within his team. So make sure that you're really robust with the tradesmen that you use. So get educated, number one, before the works. Also, find out what needs to be done. So if you're not educated, get somebody around who is, because you're going to have somebody who's a builder. You're going to have somebody who knows what they're doing, and they'll be able to tell you. If you have to pay them for your time, so be it. That will save you more in the long run than having smoke blown up your bum by somebody who's trying to fleece you for every single penny. Because let's be clear, the builders aren't doing it for charity. They're doing it to extract as much money from you as possible. They're not your friends. They never will be. You're their meal ticket. They want to get rich just like you do. They have the same motivations. They're out for the quick buck. And what I found personally, and this, in fact, I don't care if it offends anyone, I've never met a long-sighted builder. They're all so short-sighted. They're thinking about tomorrow, the paycheck tomorrow. I've never, ever known somebody to think a year into the future and think, if I do a good job for this person, he's going to give me multiple work. And I'm finding I'm having to constantly change builders. And maybe your experience isn't that. I'm sure there are some decent ones out there, but when people see you do well, they try and extract more from you, as I've found. So before works, make sure you know what needs to be done. Get multiple quotes. And I would never give the work to one person. So even though you're inexperienced, there's going to be some stuff that you can't do. So electrics, if you're new, you might not be able to plaster. You might be able to fill in sand. But let's just say there's a couple of jobs that you can't do, and you want to give that to a main contractor who's then going to sub it out. Every person he hires, he's going to add a little bit for the trouble. So what you need to do, you need to find out what trades do what, and you directly employ them. Because when you fall out, and you will, because you're new, and generally you tend to mess things up, and everyone's going to make mistakes. You're only going to make less mistakes with help from the outside. Relationships are going to break down, and if you break down with your main contractor, you are going to be completely stuck, because he has all the contacts, he has all the trades. Excuse me. So employ them directly, employ your electrician directly, deploy your plumber directly, deploy your bricklayer directly. If you're not confident doing that, just employ the plumber and the electrician initially, because you want to be in control of the certificates. And most jobs stall because you're not happy with how the builder has done something, but he has the certificate, so you're at a loss and you're screwed, because you need them for your building control. You need them to maybe sell the property for the mortgage. So employ the electrician and the plumber directly, because you're going to need a gas safety cert and your electrician cert to get your building regs done, and you don't want that relationship breaking down. So you've got your free quotes, you've spoken to multiple people, and also it might be worth it, if it's a fairly big job, speaking to a quantitative surveyor, and they'll tell you how much the job should have cost approximately and what needs doing. And then you can get builders to quote on that if you're not 100%. And most people won't be in the beginning. So now that you've got your free quotes, a good exercise, because I'm really bad for this personally, a fantastic exercise is to say to the trade, I want you to tell me what's included in that quote, just so you know your expectation is matching what their expectation is. Because very often, and initially I got really angry about this, but it was my fault. I would assume that the waste collection would be involved and that they would get rid of the waste. I should assume that they'd be making good the doors, for example. And he would quote, or she would quote, right, I'm only going to do this, this, and this, and this. And all the extras that I assumed would be involved weren't. And then that's how that you can, when there's disparity and they're on site, the upper hand is people will want to start someone else's work, so they can just bump the price up. Always have in the back of your mind as well, they're not your friend, you're their meal ticket. Building work is hard. It's very hard. And so they should get paid for it. And it can be a win-win, but always have in the back of the mind, you need to be negotiating. They're not your friends. So have them read back to you what you think is involved in the quote. So say, I want the concrete post put in, I want the waste taken away, and then I'll make good the garden and clean it. And then after that, you get it in writing. And you make if you're picking this builder or you're picking this trade, I mean, for every job that's a major refurb, you get a contract and you get it in writing, and you sign, they sign, and have rewards. So if they finish early, pay them extra. If they finish behind or they're late, have a penalty. And you'll find that most people, you'll be paying the rewards, and that'll be good, because the highest cost of any build is the labor. And I'm only talking about aspects that you can't do yourself, because if this is your first project, chances are you're not going to have a massive extension. You're not going to be putting a new roof on. So you're going to be able to do quite a bit of it, but there are certain aspects of stuff that you will not be able to do. Especially, you might think you might be able to hang a door, when in reality it's actually quite a difficult job and skilled job, and you need a lot of practice to get it good at it. So you've got multiple quotes, you've got your trades, you're not giving it to a main contractor, you're building the personal relationships with the trade yourself. If you don't know where to look, just go into any building supplies, and there'll be like loads and loads of cards, and just start calling them. Go on the local Facebook group, say, does anyone know any chippies they would recommend, or sparkies, or plumbers, etc. And you'll be inundated with loads of recommendations. And the longer that you spend chatting to these people, and cheaper isn't always necessarily better, you'll know who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. And normally it can be the person who's I find it tends to be like the old boys that are really, really good for me, instead of like the young guy who has the really flash vans and comes across as really professional. I actually tend to have more trouble with them. It's the people who are good at their job, but they don't really understand the business side of it, and they keep messing that up. They're good builders, but then you have to do a bit more management on the building side, business side for them, and that tends to work. So you're going to have a schedule of works. You're not just going to sign a contract to say, this is how much the work is going to get done. This is what's going to get done. You want to have time constraints, and you want to make sure that the payment schedule you're both happy with. So you say, this is how much you want for a deposit, or this is how much you want for week 1, week 2, etc. And if you're working with a builder for the first time, never pay a deposit. Pay the deposit when they turn up on site with the materials. Be ready to meet them on the day. Say, listen, I'll be there with the cash if you want, ready to do the bank transfer. Never pay for someone who you've met the first time. I never will. Everyone else gets paid a month in lieu. Everyone. And you should, if you're a plumber, chippy, sparky, you'll have accounts. I'm not any of those, and I have accounts, so I can go and get materials now and pay for it in a month's time. And if that person can't do that, and like I said, they're not very good with the business side, then you perhaps can take them through that, and show them and set it up for them, because that's what I've done for our builders. Because not a penny leaves my hand until the work is done. I've been burnt too many times. So you want to pay for work after it's done. But on the flip side, all the risk is with the trade then. So you've got to be a good payer, because if they've done the work, don't nitpick, don't be a nightmare, because at the end of the day, if you're involved in property, £1,000 to you is a hell of a lot less than £1,000 to a trade who probably spends as he earns and doesn't have much savings. And that's a really, really, really broad sort of like assumption. Some trades are absolutely loaded, some aren't. So you've got to, and if somebody says, oh, I'm not going to work for you, they're done, brilliant. That's another lead you can cross off, because you're not working with that person. It's too risky when you've got bridging, you've got lending, you've got investors. You cannot entertain the idea of paying for work that doesn't get done. And it happens time and time and time again, where people will pay for work, they won't turn up. There are extenuating circumstances, say their job is half finished, but we won't go into that. Just don't pay before the work has begun. So day one, builder tips up. you need to be on site at least once a day to see them working, because I've had it initially before I was wise to this, where people would turn up, they'd call me and say, I'm at the property, and I'd be like, brilliant, fantastic. And then as I got more and more time off, I'd call them while I was at the property or at the development. Oh yeah, I'm there. I was like, really? I'm there also. And then the excuses come. So never believe somebody at their word. Always check. And to the point where one scenario, I was having work done. It was Friday. And I said, right, I'm busy Friday, so I'm going to be back late. And I had the builders calling me up Friday saying, whoa, what, this is not on. All the work is finished. We've worked really hard this week. And like giving me the sob story, like, oh, it's pathetic. I really lost a lot of respect for him. And this is somebody I considered a potential long-term business partner. And like every excuse on the sun, the guys need paying. This is unacceptable. We've worked so hard for this. We finished the job. We've done 2 weeks work in like a week. And then as I say, that's fine. That's really great, but you ain't getting paid until I come and see the work. And then on my way back up, because I was in London, I got the text, actually, we didn't get a few things finished. And I should have been shocked, but I wasn't, because I expected it, because they're all the same. They all lie. It's better to assume that they're dishonest. And then when they are honest, great. But also, if they are honest and they have a proven track record, still check up on them. Just make that your habit. Make sure that they know that you're a client that is not going to take their word for it. You're going to check up, because then once you establish that culture, they're not going to take you for a ride ever. Like, one thing that they know with me, they're going to get paid if they do the work. That's it. That's all they want. So they're not going to cut corners. And they will try. 100% tradesmen will try. So you've got your contracts. You're writing out your contracts for the works that you can't do. You want each week, or however the tradesman wants to, let him decide the payment schedule. If he wants a deposit, say nope. You can go and get the materials. Give me the receipt for the materials. When I see the materials come off the van, I'll pay you that. And then pay at stages. And make sure there's a date there. Make sure there is a date for when you need the works done by, and make a penalty and a reward system. And you know what? That will filter out 95% of the trades. There'll be so many people who will just say, this client is worth more trouble than he's worth. And you want that. You want to get rid of the people who can't be bothered to be really, really a professional and stick to your schedule. And all right, okay. So that's what we're talking about in terms of professional trades. But so you're on your first refurb, and that most builders will try and charge you a couple of £1,000 to do a strip out, and a strip out is so easy. So what I would recommend is just putting in a local Facebook group, because I got 3 guys for 80 quid a day, basically to strip out. And all they do is rip out the old kitchen, rip out the tiles, make sure your sparky's gone in and disconnected all the electric, same with your plumber with the gas and all that, so everything's good to go. And strip the place bare, and instead of costing me £4,000 or £5,000 to strip out, it cost me 800 quid, because a few guys, a couple of days, and saved a massive amounts of cost there on labour. So if you're wanting to do a refurb, do that yourself. And don't give me this bullcrap, you haven't got time. If you're involved in property and you're in a full-time job, you're obviously involved in property because you want to change your life and you want to get out of whatever rat race you're involved. So that means evening and weekends. There are loads of people that do it, so stop making the excuses. Strip out is one of the easiest parts. Make sure you get a sparky in there, an electrician or a plumber. Turn off the gas and electric. Good to go. Go in there with a sledgehammer. To take out walls, supporting walls or anything like that, you're going to need a builder, and that's going to have to be contracted in. But to take out a kitchen, to take out some wardrobes or shelves, or get rid of some wallpaper, you're doing that. Take out a bathroom, you're doing that. If you want to save cost, and it's fairly easy to do. Get a skip, put it in the skip. It probably won't go. It'll take you a week if you've got a holiday, etc. And then the stuff that you can do yourself, you're going to do. You can find loads of videos on YouTube. And what you got to remember, if you're selling it, get it done by a professional. But if you're renting it, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect as long as it's functional and clean. And so fitting a toilet, if the drainage is already there, it's really, really easy. Most people think it's really difficult. You just take out the old toilet and then you've got these pipes, put it in the toilet. So research everything, get on YouTube and watch people do it. And if you think you can do it, do it. Putting in a bath is actually really easy. Putting in taps is actually really easy if there's isolation valves nearby. Putting in a kitchen, however, you're going to need a chippy for that. So go on YouTube, find out what you think you can do. Plumbing is the easiest one out of them all. If you do it wrong, it costs more because obviously a leak can be really damaging, but it's actually really, really easy. I'm actually shocked at how much plumbers charge to run plastic pipes and connect them to baths. And siliconing is actually really easy. So that's where I was today. I was actually repairing a leak. Now we're going to talk about during the works with your trades. As we said before, you need to constantly check up on them, constantly when that relationship is first being made, because if this is your first refurb, every relationship is going to be a new one. So every day, at least go up and have a chat with them and learn from their experience as well, because that'll help you with the next deal. Material-wise, don't go to the big chains like Wix or B&Q or what, because they're actually quite expensive. They're good for your little quick repairs because they'll have everything, and the time saved searching for it will pay dividends as opposed to going to the local building merchants. So, for example, in Birmingham, we have Wix, where a run of copper pipe might be, say, £8. And then you have Manjits, which is a local family-run store, where it'll be like £4.50. Like the price change is absolutely phenomenal when you go to the local chains. And you can get trade accounts if you're really, really adamant that you want to use these big chains. Go there and get a trade account, because you'll get 5% discount or 10% discount. And then you can go on the website with that code and then look for the offers. And if you're looking at multiple companies, so like Wix, Travis Perkins, they might have, say, like Breeze Blocks 10% off, or a Kitchen Suite, like end of the line 10% off. You can then stack your discount, so you can have your 10% and plus your trade account, put your code in, you get 20%, and that becomes quite competitive with the other shops out there. For me, I use a company called heatandplumbing.com because I order like 20 bathroom suites and we get them at really good prices. So one thing that you need to do when doing your refurbs is make sure you shop around for your materials. And when I say materials, you are going to get the materials that you can see. So what do I mean by that? So bricks, plaster, floorboards, stuff like that, let your builder get if that's what you're doing. If you're doing any extensions, stuff that you can see. So doors, door furniture, laminate flooring, the kitchen, the showers, the toilets, the sinks, the taps, the mirrors, etc. you're going to purchase, because there's a real huge disparity in the prices there, and that's where you can save some money. But on the flip side, you're then going to have to chase up when stuff arrives that's wrong, because it's never right in my experience. Say we order 6 toilets, usually there'll be like a toilet seat missing. So you have to allow for time for that. So you're going to buy everything that you can see. And that's a really good way of keeping costs down, because there's no incentive for the builder to get the cheap prices. There really isn't. Why would they waste their time searching around for cheap prices? Because with bricks and mortar and cement and plaster, it's like pennies, even if they buy it in bulk. Right, so the project's going along, you're doing all the labor of stripping out, you're getting the materials delivered, you're doing all the painting, the sanding, the stuff that's relatively easy. Try and reuse everything that you possibly can if this is a rental, because you don't necessarily need to go for the highest quality, because it's not going to get looked after anyway by most people. And then say the work's finished. What you need to do as well, you need to keep a 5% retention from your trades for 3 months, because as soon as you pay them all and there's problems, most people, it'll be really difficult to get them back. And again, this is going to like completely get rid of about 95% of the people that you're going to get quotes from, because they'll say no, but there'll be a few that will. And with that 5%, if they don't turn up, you use that to repair the mistakes. And I'm meaning like leaks, or like maybe a door comes off the hinges or whatnot, whatever it might be. So keep a 5% retention for 3 months of the contract value. So if the contract value, you're getting a rewire, you're doing everything, new plugs, new sockets, keep 5% of the contract value. And that might be like 500-600 quid, which is quite a large amount if you're doing a big project. And it'll certainly keep the trade coming back to repair. Because if you give them all the money, they're just not going to turn up. They'll be, yeah, mate, yeah, I'll do it. But then that relationship is broken, because they're not going to want to quote for you again, because they know that they need to go and do some work. Where if there's money involved with it and they're going to get more money after 3 months, they're more likely to come back. And it's less headache and hassle for you. And the first 3 months, everything is being worn in, everything is breaking, everything needs to be repaired. And then usually I get no problems from the stuff then, from the like showers, taps, or doors, or floors, or whatever. And take nothing personal when you're involved in this. Like, they're not your mates. They're there to make money. You're there to make money. And it's always a back and forth. It's a little bit of a dance. And what I recommend to keep the cost down is you do the painting, you do the sanding and painting of the wood, use the existing skirting, architrave, doors. Don't make massive structural changes. I mean, like putting walls up if you can avoid it. And this is all to keep your refurb costs down. If the kitchen as well is like a modular kitchen, perhaps it's an ex-Howden's kitchen, you can just get the end panels and the doors and the worktop changed and get a new sort of like kick plate, and then the kitchen will be completely transformed. But the more expensive stuff within it, the carcass, so when you open your kitchen, there's like a white box, and that's the carcass. That is the most expensive bit in a kitchen. So if you save those, or you're able to save those, you might be able to just get decor end panels, get new, like, because worktops initially, before I got involved in this, I thought worktops were expensive. They're not. They're about 80 quid from Howden's when you get a trade account, which is so cheap. The decor end panels are about 19-20 quid. It's the actual carcasses that are like 150 quid, 160 quid. And no matter where you go, the carcasses are always the expensive bit. So like your sinks, your handles, they're all replaceable, and they're all really cheap to buy when you go to a trade account. So we go to Howden's, and we'll get a kitchen all in for $5,000. But that'll be for like 8 people, with two cupboards themselves, and the worktops, which I feel is a pretty good price. But if it's a single let, you can get like, with the kitchens, you can get sales, and there'll be like a kitchen that's flat pack, and they're complete nightmare to work with, and you're going to have to put them together. They're not going to last very long because they're not high quality. However, if it's a rental and you haven't got any money and you just want to get that valuation, they do look quite nice. So I got a kitchen for £600 from Howden's when I did that Hartlepool deal, and got it fitted, and it was perfect. It served its purpose. So you can get the flat pack Howden stuff, but then you're going to have to put it together, because there's no point in paying a really experienced chippy to put together a carcasses when it's quite simple to put together, and say he's on 160 or 170 a day, because it will take him 2 or 3 days to put the kitchen together. Excuse me. So don't be loyal to a brand. As I said, don't be loyal to Wix, don't be loyal to B&Q. Go to every single one and make them compete against each other, saying this is how much these are going to charge me for, say, these plasterboards, this length of skirt, and can you do any better? And then go back and forth, and it'll take a lot of time, but it'll save you money. If money's really, really tight, that's what you need to do. And the biggest cost of any job is usually the labor. So if you pay cheap, and you pay Frank from around the corner, who used to do a bit of carpentry back in the day when he was doing woodwork GCSE, you're going to pay twice. And that has been, personally for us, our biggest expense has been paying to rectify crap work. And I'll tell you the situation. We have a property. I was going through some training to learn how to kitchen fit myself, and I was coming back and I was seeing how bad this work was. And at that point, fortunately, we stopped him, I'd done a plumbing course at this point, done a kitchen fitting course at this point. We stopped him, kicked him off. And since then, we've been constantly having to rectify his work. So that's why the importance of education is really, really underestimated in my opinion. So get the right people in to do these jobs. Get them in, because once they mess up, it costs way more to rectify the poor work. And so on the flip side, I know you're trying to keep costs down, but you've got to think long term, not short term. So you want everything done properly. So that means paying 100 or 60 or 170 for a chippy. That means paying 200 quid for an electrician. You want it done properly, those important trades. The stuff that you can do, laying flooring, never get a tradesman to lay a floor, laminate flooring, if you're short of money, because it's so easy to do. Never get somebody to paint a wall, because it's so easy to do. It's very time intensive, so that's why it costs quite a bit to paint a room. And for your first one, you're not going to be interested in scaling. You'll be interested in making some money, and that's where you can save costs. Painting, getting yourself on YouTube, doing loads of DIY. It doesn't need to be perfect if it's a rental. I'm going to keep saying that, because I get really, really wound up. I used to, by the builder's poor quality, but the tenant doesn't see that. The tenant comes in, dumps his bags on the floor, slams the door, makes cracks on the bloody architrave, and that I have to fill in sand. But they're like, listen, just leave it. I don't really care, as long as the heating and the Wi-Fi's on. That's what they seem to care about most. It's me creating problems when there isn't any. So I'm not 100% as diligent as I used to be on the stuff that I can see. So the door architrave doesn't need to be perfect anymore, because the tenants don't care. It's not affecting the bottom line. It's not affecting the rents. Stuff that does affect is heating, is water pressure, knowing what system to put in the refurb if you're doing a HMO. But we're just sticking with buy-to-lets for the moment. So I'm going to summarize now. So before the works, get multiple quotes, and don't pay for work that hasn't been done. Make that clear. And then also get them to repeat what you want back to you, because you might have assumed that they have quoted for this job and they haven't. So do that, and then get that in writing, and have a payment schedule and have an end date. This work needs to be done by this date. For every day that you're late, 50 quid fine. For every day that you're early, 50 quid reward. And that's going to get rid of 90%, 95% of the trades. During the works, turn up at least once a day. So if that means Frank from around the corner has said he's painted or fitted the kitchen, and he knocks off at 4 o'clock, for example, and you are in full-time work, you're going to go around in the evening, you're going to check on the work and make sure it's done. You're never, ever going to pay without seeing the work. Never take their word for it. Ever. Never, ever, ever, ever. I'm going to reiterate that. Always have a look. Always see for yourself. And then always, always, always be a good payer if they've done the job. Don't make life harder than it needs to be, because they need to earn money as well. After the works, keep a 5% retention, and make sure you say that at the start, because once the work begins and they're on site, the ball is completely in the tradesman's court. You are the one that's at the disadvantage here, because they're on the job, they're doing the works. Where before the job, that's when you need to leverage, because they're going to want the work, they're going to want the job. So that's when you're in a much better position, I personally found. So keep your 5% retention. Make sure that's agreed to before the work starts. Realize they're not your mate. They never will be your mate. They might laugh and joke, and there'll be some awkward jokes as they try and make friends with you. But there's always needs to be that barrier. There always needs to be that, like, listen, mate, you've messed up here, and I want it put right. You ain't getting paid today, because that's really difficult to do if you're really, really matey with your trades. And what I find most people, when I speak to them about their refurbs, is that they're really nervous about saying they're not happy with it. And you need to set the standard from the beginning. So for me, I was the same as well. And the relationship broke down, because then I tried to change. And then I said, listen, I want the doors to be straight. I want them to be doors that close and don't rattle. Because I went on a course and I knew that it was possible. It was actually quite easy to do. It just took a bit more work. So set the bar high from the beginning. And realize that they're not your mates. You might have a laugh and a joke, but they're there to earn money. If you weren't paying them, they wouldn't be there, rest assured. And when stuff goes wrong and it goes through the pan, they're not going to work for you for free. They're still going to want paying. So do what you can yourself if you're really strapped for cash. And this is what I want you to do: to strip out, painting, laminate flooring. And like painting and laminate flooring can make most rooms pretty good. Like filling and sanding the cracks or sanding the holes is a fantastic method of changing a room. And most deals will only need a new kitchen, a new bathroom, and you can fit a new bathroom. It is not that difficult. Even if you fit the new bathroom, then get a plumber to just come and check it over. You'll save massive costs that way. Like siliconing and sealing a bath is pretty easy. Same with the shower, same with the sink. Putting like tiling is so easy to do. And when you're renting it out, it doesn't necessarily need to be perfect. It can be if you get a level. Putting a sink in, really easy to do. If the drainage is in place, if it's your first time and the drainage is in place, then do it. If you're putting in a new bathroom and you need to run soil stacks, then obviously get a plumber in for that. And try and use what's already in the property. So like doors, like a door painted, it looks completely different and you can make it look brand new, taking off the handles and putting new handles on. Maybe brush, getting a wire brush, putting it on the hinges, making them like a brush steel sort of effect. You'll be amazed at what you can do. With materials, try and go to local builders after you've gone to all the main places and you've got your quotes and you've bounced them all off again, because the local builder will have more leeway to negotiate. Local builders merchant, apologies. Don't be loyal to the brand. The biggest cost, again, labor. If you're going to pay cheap, you're probably going to pay twice. And you're going to pay even more if you're going to rectify somebody's work. So make sure your trades are good. They're reputable. You've spoken to past customers. You've put their names in Google. You've made sure you've done your research on them. You've asked in the local pages if anybody's worked with this person, and you want to see pictures of their work. Okay, and at the end, when everything's done, and you're wanting to let it out, what you need to ask, you're going to do your, like, it's called snagging, where you go around and you pick things. If it's a rental, you've got to ask, is it worth delaying it another week or delaying it another 2 weeks to get the snagging that isn't going to affect your bottom line? And when I say snagging, for instance, a tile might be a little bit out, or I don't know, like the door might be, like there might be a little bit of a blemish on some walls or marks on the walls that are going to get marked anyway. And you might want to instruct your builder to go around and fix it and waste a further 2 weeks. When really you want to just get somebody in there, because the tenant's not going to notice stuff like that. It's only going to be you, the person who owns it. People who take ownership tend to own that. So make sure, if it's not going to affect your margin, just ignore it, get over it, and make sure that you can get your money in there quickly. If you do have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. However, I can't see them because I've got 3 there. Again, I'm going to need to learn how this bloody works. It happens every time. And that's the summary, basically. You can do a lot more than you think you can. Make sure you get reputable trades. Make sure everything is written down, every single thing. Make sure there's a gift, a reward and a penalty clause. Remember, they're not your mates. Shop around for materials and don't come up with bullcrap excuses to say, I don't have the time to do this. If you're in property, you're wanting a change. So that means evenings and weekends. That doesn't mean trips. That means cancelling the trips and doing the works yourself if you need to. And then once you've done 1 or 2 and get more experience, then you want to start subbing it out. You don't want to keep doing the work yourselves because it's not very scalable. And that's my take on how to keep the cost of a refurb down. I hope you found it useful. I hope you protect yourself financially in the future by making sure that you do write everything down and that you get the best price on your materials, and then make some good money and move on to bigger and better things. If you want to know more about it, or if you want to chat to me about refurbs, we've done plenty now, and we've made absolutely bucket loads of mistakes. And through that process, we now have a really, really good method of doing our builds. And where initially my first big HMO took a year, Like an 8-bed HMO took a year because I changed builders, I messed up. Now it takes 3 months to do an 8-bed. And the finished product is 10 times better than it was when we first started. And that's all through experience, and not necessarily doing it by myself. I asked, I was coached on how to do it, and the results speak for themselves. So if you're interested in any of this, do let us know, and we can hopefully come to some agreement where perhaps you come and take a look at our sites, we have a chat, and see if we can help each other. All right, cheers. If you want to know more about our company, the KML Group, you can visit our website. Or alternatively, if you're wanting to go into some coaching and learn from the person who I learned from in terms of finding property, that's Mr. Vincent Wong. You can go to thewealthdragons.com